And joining us in the studio for more is pollster and political strategist Dr. Dahlia Scheindlin and Jeremy Saltan, political advisor to the Yamina Party and director of its English operations. And Dahlia, we're still getting used to seeing Naftali Bennett as the prime minister opening the session and Benjamin Netanyahu as the opposition leader going on the attack after him. What did you make of their speeches today?
Well, I was just thinking as I was watching the summaries that I had watched both of them live. I had all sorts of things to say about Naftali Bennett's speech. He is trying to present himself as something that in Hebrew we call mamlachti, which is a sort of dignified statesmanship-like demeanor. I think he basically does that pretty well, but his speech kept getting interrupted and heckled, which reminded me a lot of the attempted swearing in of this government, back to the political circus. And then shortly after that, he was followed by former prime minister, head of the opposition, Benjamin Netanyahu, and I thought, welcome home to political populism and exactly the same sort of rhetoric that he used to use as prime minister. Everything is a pithy, rhyming sentence designed to simplify the situation, cut everything down to binaries, and often tell reality in rather different ways than it is. Having said that, I think that Bennett did something interesting, which is he learned a lot from Netanyahu. He did some things in his speech that reminded me of Netanyahu, trying to make big splashy headlines in his speech, such as the new information that the Mossad has been trying to gather on Ron Arad.
Right, we'll have more on that later in this program.
So it's a preview, but I think he has clearly learned the lessons. I mean, Netanyahu maybe didn't think about the fact that after 12 years in power, people had a long time to study what he did well and try to imitate it. And in that sense, Naftali Bennett seems to be doing a pretty good job.
All right, let's keep in mind Naftali Bennett was once his chief of staff, so maybe some of that came from Naftali Bennett originally. Jeremy, of course you could respond to what Dahlia had to say, but let's also maybe respond to some of what we heard in that report by Owen, which is even if they pass the budget, we'll talk about that a little more in a bit, even if they avoid the security issues that are so divisive, we'll have more on that. Even what they're proposing is very divisive, even within the coalition, some of these issues.
You know, before the faction meeting today, which I attended with the Prime Minister, we had the coalition leaders meeting where you have the faction leaders of each one of the 8 parties that make up this coalition meet together to discuss the issues at the beginning, of course, of this winter session. I didn't hear any screaming. You know, everyone had a very good understanding of what the limits are of each one of the coalition partners. It was a fruitful discussion. No one threw any chairs, and they all left giggling and pretty happy with themselves. So when I see this picture being portrayed on the outside, that this is a very tense coalition, that there are a lot of issues, that there's chances because of very bombastic pieces of legislation that might come up and go ahead and derail everything. Again, as someone who spent the entire day in the Knesset, I saw a completely different coalition, a coalition who is very much together on the same page.
But you heard words of warning from Yair Lapid, the foreign minister, and of course the key partner, cautioning his partners that people do seem to be drifting apart, maybe feeling a little overconfident, as maybe you are.
Well, you know, listen, I'll tell you that there is a difference that I feel between what you see with the ministers and what you see with the Knesset members. Let's remember that the Knesset has not been in session for a couple months. For the coalition members who are regular MKs, who are not ministers or deputy ministers, they've not really had a lot to do, frankly, the last couple months. So they're coming back to their jobs, and they're very eager, even though tonight they're probably going to be voting till at least 1 a.m. The ministers is a different situation, but let's remember that also a majority of the ministers have resigned in the Norwegian law. They do not hold the actual fingers that are needed to get to the 61 needed to pass the state budget. So it could be that a lot of them are overconfident, but in the end, frankly, we do not need their votes in order to go ahead and pass this budget, which is another reason why I do feel cautiously optimistic and confident that we will be able to cruise through the next period of time into November and pass this state budget. And again, I understand the narrative from the opposition, but we've proven time and time again that every obstacle that's been thrown in our way, we've gotten through it. and pass what we
That's
needed
true.
to.
I want to pick up on that because it may be that once they pass the budget, which is, of course, the real key to the survival, some of these more differences are going to emerge, some of the specific issues that Owen raised there.
I agree, and I think that it will also go beyond the budget. I mean, I think that I kind of agree with the analysis that the budget is likely to pass because I think all of those 8 parties have a very strong interest in showing the public that they can function as a government and that they can join forces to pass a budget. However, we have at least two, if not 3, major challenges that threaten the coalition outside the budget. One is the question of what is Meretz doing with meeting with Mahmoud Abbas, and is that going to become an issue? Sure. The other one is the potential. But the other one, I think that it's going to be coming up is the potential for passing a new citizenship law, or what's being called the law of immigration, which is being proposed by a very, very assertive opposition member, and he's in negotiations with the future Justice Minister Ayelet Shaked, which is going to be a very controversial issue following on the previous citizenship law that could also tear the coalition apart.
Right, and of course, I'm just going to clarify that relates to what's the question of deciding who the character of the state, especially as relation to its Jewishness and the minority. And let's keep in mind, this is the first government that has a non-Jewish party within the coalition, though not sitting within the government. Jeremy Saltan, Dahlia Scheindlin, please stay with us. We're going to continue on this